everyone. Good morning from Sydney. It's nearly 2 a.m. on Sunday morning here. Thank you very much for joining me in my presentation today. My name is Trang Hoang and I'm originally from Vietnam, but I'm doing my PhD at University of Technology, Sydney. My presentation today is entitled Teacher Positioning and Teaching Practices in EMI, a case study in Vietnamese higher education. My presentation has 4 main parts. In the first part, I will quickly explain the research problems which motivated me to conduct this study, then my research aims and research questions. Next, I will briefly describe the theoretical framework, the methods I used to collect data and analyze data before presenting the findings and discussion of the findings, which will be the focus of my presentation. My presentation ends with a short conclusion. So let's start. As you know, EMI is growing so fast all over the world that research into EMI hasn't been able to keep pace with its development. This study, therefore, firstly addresses the need for more research into EMI teaching practices in the Asia-Pacific region, especially in Vietnam, where EMI research is still in its infancy. Additionally, EMI teachers in the literature are reported to say something like, "I don't teach language," or "we're not language teachers," which directly relates to their view of their duties in EMI. While there have been a few studies into teachers' perceptions of their roles in EMI, as far as I'm concerned, none of the studies so far have adopted positioning theory. Therefore, this study also addressed a theoretical gap by using positioning theory to look into teachers' perceptions of their rights and duties in EMI and how their perceptions interact with their teaching practices. Specifically, this research aimed to answer 2 research questions. How do teachers position themselves in their accounts of EMI practices? And how do their self-positionings affect their teaching practices in EMI? So as I've just mentioned, I used positioning theory as the theoretical framework because of its suitability with the research aims and also its alignment with my beliefs about professional practices. Positioning theory was established in 1990 by Davies and Harry, and was later developed by many scholars in collaboration with Harry, the main author. Within positioning theory, positioning triangle is an important construct and also an analytic framework. One angle in this triangle is position or positioning. Position refers to one's beliefs about one's rights and duties in a certain context, while positioning refers to the assignment of rights and duties to someone. So self-positioning refers to one's assignment of rights and duties to oneself, and other positioning refers to one's assignment of rights and duties to others. One's positions and positionings will affect one's actions, which is the second angle, and one's positions or positionings and one's actions should be understood in a narrow context of relationships, that is storyline, and in much broader context, that is moral orders, which include cultural, legal, institutional, conversational, and personal levels. And this is how I operationalized positioning theory in my study. In addition to positioning theory, I used a single case study design with multiple participants because my participants shared many common characteristics and conditions. Data were collected in a distance with semi-structured interviews via Zoom, and EMI lessons were audio recorded with a digital recorder sent to each participant. And the data was then analyzed using thematic analysis. Here is a brief profile of the 3 chemistry lecturers participated in my study. Due to the time limit, I'd like to focus on the interview data and present only one common self-positioning among the 3 lecturers, that is, teachers as content knowledge providers. By perceiving themselves as content knowledge providers, the 3 lecturers not only didn't consider language teaching their duties in EMI, but also unintentionally positioned their students as passive and dependent knowledge recipients who could not explore the knowledge by themselves. The teachers' self-positioning was evident in their view of their duties in EMI and in their descriptions of different aspects of their teaching practices, from lesson preparation to their pedagogical decision to enhance students' background knowledge. Regarding duties in EMI, the teachers' views of their duties were closely related to content. They either believed the duties in EMI were nothing different from those in Vietnamese medium instruction, VMI. That is, transmitting fully the content prescribed in course guides, or EMI teachers have to provide students with updated knowledge from a variety of sources. This self-positioning strongly aligned with their expectations of students' classroom behaviors. For example, listening to the lectures and take notes, or listen attentively and learn a lot, or simply learn. And none of the teachers considered it part of their duties to teach language, disciplinary language knowledge to the students, nor to develop students' autonomy in knowledge self-construction. And this finding confirmed the content focus in EMI, or the general view of EMI lecturers as not language teachers, so nothing to do with language beyond the introduction of the meanings of terms. As the teachers perceive their roles as providing knowledge to students, in their early days of EMI practices, they spent a lot of time preparing for lesson content and PowerPoint slides. But now when I ask them what they do to prepare for their EMI lessons, 2 of them replied, not much or nothing, because everything is in my head, as them said. One teacher was a bit different because she still spent some time reviewing and modifying the slides, but then it was not a great deal for her. So generally, they didn't spend much time at all to prepare for EMI lessons now. And the lecturer's answers were a bit surprising to me, because the lecturers in the literature are often reported to complain about the increased workload in EMI, but then not in the case of my participants. Because they assumed the position of content knowledge providers, they saw it their duty to supply all the necessary knowledge for students' comprehension of new content in English. So when realizing that students wouldn't be able to understand the new content without some background knowledge, the lecturers spent their EMI lesson hours, or even spent their free time, as in the case of one teacher here, to teach background knowledge to the students. She believed that without proper background knowledge, the students couldn't think in English and comprehend her EMI lessons. So as a devoted teacher, she spent a lot of time holding online classes to teach students necessary background knowledge in Vietnamese before teaching them new content in English in English only in official EMI lesson hours. So basically, for every 3-hour EMI lessons, she spent 2 to 3 hours online, holding lessons online free of charge to the students. The other 2 teachers, they also pre-taught some content for students before teaching the main lesson content in English, but to a lesser extent. Like Dan, the only male here, the lesson recordings showed that he often spent like 15 minutes, sometimes 30 to 45 minutes at the beginning of an EMI lesson to teach some content in Vietnamese. Or the last person here, for her, it was much less, only 5 to 10 minutes, possibly because her EMI course is only at the introductory level, so the background knowledge involved might be rather simple, while dance course is very specialized and is considered a hard course in the chemistry program. So basically, the 3 lecturers' line of thinking or belief goes like this. I try my best to deliver content in the most comprehensible way and provide you with reference materials. But if you, the students, still don't understand, there are only 2 reasons. Either you don't make enough efforts or you're lazy. And in this case, I will force you to learn or just leave you alone as long as you pass my course. In the second case, the second reason is that you don't have enough capability to understand. Either you don't have enough English language proficiency or you don't have enough background knowledge or both. And in this case, I will support you further by directly teaching you some background knowledge in Vietnamese. As you can see, the teachers positioned themselves as very supportive and devoted content knowledge providers, while their students were put in the role of passive and dependent knowledge recipients. The use of extra materials for EMI classes, for example, using both L1 and L2 learning materials to enhance students' background knowledge and to compensate for the insufficient or inappropriate learning materials in EMI is not rare in the literature. But then spending a considerable amount of time for substantial instruction of knowledge in students' first language, like in the case of my participants, is something uncommon. For my participants, using L1 textbooks is not feasible because Vietnamese textbooks are often not updated. To sum up, a snapshot of the findings revealed that although teachers are supposed to be more student-centered in EMI, which means their rights and duties are expected to change, their perception of their roles might be still the same as in the case of my participants. They still assumed the absolute position of knowledge providers, just as that of the traditional teachers in Confucian heritage cultures. And as a result, they tended to downplay the role of pedagogy, especially learning design, in their EMI practices. Therefore, professional development courses for EMI lecturers should spare some space for them to reflect on their identity, on the beliefs of their rights and duties in EMI before challenging their possibly old beliefs with new practices. Nevertheless, this small study was conducted with only 3 lecturers in one discipline, and the 3 lecturers are very confident in EMI. So with diverse EMI experiences, and the participants should come from a number of disciplines. For the data collection instruments to teacher identity and their teaching practices in EMI more thoroughly. Due to the time limit, there are some issues that haven't been properly covered in my presentation, but all comments and questions are welcome. And thank you very much for your attention. And here is the list of references that I used for this presentation. Thank you.